My guest today is Ryan Boswell, a creative and business owner known for his many ventures.
My career has just been one giant cluster of figuring it out. Instead of thinking that there's a set career path, I knew that I wanted to do business. And so I saw it as a direction. Every single time I got a new experience, I tried to just refine that, what path I wanted to take.
But what separates Ryan is not the businesses he's built. It's the fact that he never waited for permission to start.
It's never really been about the money for me. You do a really good job and then money is the effect. It's the byproduct.
And when failure came, he used it as the exact fuel to build something bigger.
When the goal is to experience, everything is a win. I look at everything as a teaching experience, a winning experience, very educational losing experience.
And now today, he's with me to share his story and to help other aspiring entrepreneurs learn more about the world of business.
Ryan Boswell, welcome to the show.
Thank you, it's good to be here.
Thank you for being here. I got 5 rapid fire questions for you.
Okay, hit me.
Is going viral on social media mostly luck?
No.
Can anyone start a business?
Yes,
Okay.
but not everyone should.
Is consistency more important than talent?
Yes.
Do you believe energy can be taught?
Yes.
Did you ever doubt yourself early on in your journey?
Yes.
Why?
Can I say, do I still doubt myself? Yeah. Okay, cool. You hit a point where you think you know what you're doing and then something will hit and you're like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think those are there as reality checks. So yeah, we can dive into that a little bit later.
That's
but
cool.
Yes, absolutely. I still doubt myself every day.
Okay, but you're still doing it
Yes.
despite the doubt.
Yes.
I think that's where a lot of people kind of fall, is because they doubt themselves and don't act versus doubting but then actually acting.
I think if you don't doubt yourself, you're probably a little too overconfident. At least a little bit. I think there's a good humility check in doubting. It means that there's still some, you'll hit a stride, and whether that's business, any venture that you decide to work on, like you have full confidence in what you're doing. Doesn't mean that doubts still aren't going to creep into your mind. Like it's okay to still wonder, like, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right things? And I'm not just talking about business now, right?
Right,
like,
everything.
Am I making the right decisions? And it's okay to doubt. I think it's healthy to ask those questions as well. Some of the times that I've doubted myself have been when I've ended up landing on, I thought I was going to go down path A, and then I doubted myself a little bit, and that opened up path B as I was reflecting and gave me a different direction that I wasn't going to head down originally. So yeah, I wouldn't say I doubt myself like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not intelligent enough, I'm not beautiful,
Right.
like from that perspective, but it's more like, are we doing the right things? So
That's good, especially in your world where you're moving so fast all the time. There's always, I assume, questions about,
absolutely.
is this the right path?
Definitely.
I like it. I heard a few stories of where when you were 12 years old, you approached 300 longboard companies, or you sent 300 cold emails to different longboard companies to get a free product. That, first off, shows you're in early content creation desires, but also entrepreneurship. Then you also had the duct tape wallets in there and all that. Where did that early desire to create content, but also be an entrepreneur, come from?
Yeah, I mean, I've always just had the knack. I've always had the knack for creating stuff. Like that's what I feel the most drawn to, whether that's physical products or experiences or connections between people. Like I love seeing when things just like actually click together. So I mean, I remember all through junior high, I was flipping Jolly Ranchers. I was creating like cartoon art designs and selling them for 50 cents on a postcard. I mean, I've always just had this desire to like create things and sell them.
That's sweet.
It's never really, ironically, it's never really been about the money for me. Like I think that when money is the cause, you end up focusing on things for the wrong reason. Instead, you do a really good job and then money is the effect.
The byproduct of it.
It's the byproduct of doing a good job or having a good product or having a good service. And so I just loved doing and creating things. So yeah, I mean, my career started in social media. I wanted a longboard, so I cold emailed 300 longboard companies, and at the time I had a flip video camera. I actually still have my first cameras out on display out front. But like I knew that content was something that I felt drawn towards, photography, videography. By the time I was 17, I had probably 6 to 8 different sponsors that would send me gear or product, or and I was just doing social media from the get-go. So yeah, I mean, that really is kind of what started everything. I was always on photo shoots, taking pictures, trying to build that creative arm and element to my career, and that built the foundation for a lot of it.
That's sweet. Very cool. I think I sold silly bands in elementary.
I love silly bands.
Those were so cool, right? That's fun. You've mentioned all those things, but you also have 150,000 followers on TikTok. I saw a bunch of cold plunging videos, breaking the ice, hopping in there. Yep. I've only done it 2 or 3 times, so you're a legend for being able to do it that many times. But why was the cold plunge the main content?
Well, I think it's important to give just a little bit of context.
Okay.
So I graduated high school, and then I came out to Utah to do school for 2 years. Went to Utah Valley University. I worked in the athletics department there. Got an internship taking photos for the athletics teams and for all the sports teams. Free internship for my entire freshman year of college. So I didn't get paid a dime, but fell in love with sports and fell in love with like the business side of marketing. And while I was there, then I stepped into a role where I eventually ran the social media for all the different sports teams. So that was kind of my like professional jump and switch into running content for brands. That was really where my career got going. And so I was running social media for these teams, and then I went over to my first AI startup. I got recruited over to a tech startup. I was employee number 1 of 6, and then after a year, that company ran out of money, and then it was on to the next startup and the next startup, and you know how the story goes. Yeah. But you know, while running the social media side of those actual businesses, as I got into it, I realized like I started with me, and then I helped other people grow. I'm probably at a point where I could like build my own brand now, right?
Yeah.
I've worked on bunch of different businesses and industries and have helped other people do it. Like I should probably do it for myself as well. And it was interesting at that same time, that was really when I started to get into like personal development. In August of 2021, I was officially diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, depression, and OCD. So overnight, like everything just started to connect, and I was like, oh, that makes sense why I do that or why I feel that way. And so I kind of took the years of experience of actually like building brands for other people and realized this would be a really interesting thing to build my own brand around, of personal development, talking about mental health openly, like how do you be more productive? I'm in startups, I'm wanting to make the most of myself, and I was looking online and just couldn't find the right resources that like blended all of those together. And so I started making content on productivity, and then I was documenting things that helped me with learning how to be, I'd say, like the best version of myself, right? At risk of sounding cliche. But at the time, I also was documenting things that helped me with like anxiety and ADHD, blending all of that together. So I saw this guy do an ice bath on TikTok, and he was talking about how ice baths helped him with his anxiety. And like I've always heard, you know, athletes use it for their muscle recovery and for, you know, you got to be like an extreme athlete to do a cold plunge. And here this guy was in like, I think it was up on a lake in Wisconsin or something. And I was like, I could probably do that. So I went down to the farm supply store, bought a horse trough for $129, filled it up with water, let it freeze overnight, and I did my first ice bath video. And I just filmed my experience. And it's like a 3-minute long video. I break the ice with my mallet and just document my very first ice bath. And that video did 5 million views overnight. I was at probably 40,000 followers when I posted that on TikTok. And within like 6 months, had jumped up to 70 or 80,000. And then I kind of built this large community around personal development, productivity, and cold plunges, and got up to, I think, 150,000 now. I've done probably 250, 300 million views total just on the topic of like, how do you build the best version of yourself?
So sweet.
And so that was where it all started. For me, ironically, like it wasn't, I never went to the gym until like 2021. Like I was not a gym goer. I didn't lift. I wasn't into fitness really. Like I lived an active lifestyle, and I played golf, soccer, baseball, basketball, like all the sports growing up, but I never actually got into a routine of going to the gym. And so for me, getting into cold plunging, it wasn't necessarily about like the physical benefits. It was about the mental benefits. It's hard to focus on anything other than the fact that you're freezing cold when you're in a 42 degree ice bath and it's 10 degrees outside. But I really felt like it was the thing that helped me the most with mental clarity and actually being able to like think clearly. Sweet. So there's always a different way to get things done. Like sometimes you'll start on something and think that this is what you're gonna get out of it. And in reality, that was like the first domino that had to fall in order for 5 things down the line, this to be the outcome of it. But I mean, from making that video to building this community that eventually led into me running a company, building an ice bath studio, right? And that was the first domino that had to fall in order to get there.
So Cold Plunge Studio is an ice bath place?
I got connected to my business partners in Indiana. I was living here in Utah. At the time, I was running marketing for a group here in Utah called Silicon Slopes. that builds, it's basically like the business ecosystem in Utah. So I was running marketing, got connected to that group, and they invited me to come out and make a TikTok video for the grand opening of the cold plunge business. It's like, yeah, that sounds good. In exchange, they're like, we'll take you to the Indy 500 and we'll take you to VCon, Gary V's conference. They were like back-to-back weekends. So I was like, yeah, sounds great. Went out there, had a great weekend, met my partners, and what I realized was like, we actually needed someone to come in and run the business. So I was like, what if I came out and like ran this business with you guys? 8 weeks later, I stepped in as CEO, and then 4 weeks after that, we moved out to Indiana.
Wow.
So
sweet.
Yeah, it was a pretty quick turnaround. But my wife and I, honestly, that was probably one of my favorite experiences that I've had in my career, because I saw the jump, I saw the opportunity, and we were like, let's make the most of it. So we moved across the country to a state in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest to run a retail health and wellness business in a place where we knew 3 people. And like, it was the challenge, but it was a really, really good experience. So nice. I no longer manage and operate that day to day. Built that, we got it to profitability. We got to the point where like basically the store could sustain itself, and then I passed it back to my business partners, and they kind of run it day to day. We've got a few other business ventures that we're involved in together, but moved back to Utah about a year ago now.
Okay.
So.
You mentioned the startup that you left college for. I want to bring that up because a lot of people in that same spot are either in college or working a full-time job, and they're thinking about stepping off to do something else, maybe not the traditional path, but something they want to do. What would be your advice to them as far as actually taking that leap instead of talking about it?
I think too early on, we try to make a decision on what we think that we want to do for the rest of our lives without having any research to actually back it up, right? And so I do a lot of guest lecturing at universities and high schools, and I'll go talk. Like, my path has been very different. Like, I was in school for 2 years, went to a startup. I was there for 13 months. That startup ran out of money. I went to another startup. I was there for 15 months, did a completely different job. I was running a mechanical engineering firm a year after I dropped out of college. I was there for 15 months, and then I went to a nonprofit and worked there for 9 months. And then I went from there and I went and ran a retail ice bath business in Indiana. Like, my path is not the normal path.
Right.
And all of that time, if I'd stayed in school, I would have still graduated in like December of 2024. So like it would have been this very weird path if I had decided to do things a little bit differently. But I think my advice is there's no reason to rush into deciding what you want to do for the rest of your life without actually backing up and getting some experiences. So like, my career has just been one giant cluster of figuring it out. Right. And I knew that eventually, I talk about it this way, like, instead of thinking that there's a set career path, now given if you want to go the law path, if you want to go medical, there's a set path that you have to follow, certifications you have to get, right? But in the business world, like, I knew that I wanted to do business. And so I saw it as a direction rather than a path. And every single time I got a new experience doing something, I tried to just refine that more and more and more so that I could see it would become more clearly. My experiences would help me figure out what path I wanted to take.
Right.
And in the long run, 4 to 5 years of getting experience in a couple different industries. I've worked in every industry that you can imagine. I've worked on every type of product in every different role, from running social media accounts to doing UX UI design to working with firmware engineers in Vietnam and China. Like, I just tried to get as much experience in those areas as possible to figure out, what do I like? And more importantly, what do I not like? Because you can figure out a lot of what you do want to do and what you do like based on what you don't like. And then it's just process of elimination. So like, I knew that I wanted to do business. I didn't know 5 years ago, when I made the decision to drop out of college, that eventually I would have a firm that does high ticket deal negotiation, fundraising strategies, building startups, working with athletes, negotiating deals and brand deals. Like, I had done little maybe pieces of that when I first started, but I think we place way too much weight on the first thing needs to be a success, when in reality, we need to look at things like batting averages. It's like, if for every 3 things that I work on, if one of them works out, or if I feel like that was a good experience, I'm happy with that. Because then it's just on to the next experience of what do I want to go do next. Right. So I think we just rush too quickly into trying to make a decision of what we want to do without actually having backup or context to actually back that up.
It's interesting.
My advice is, when the goal is to experience, everything is a win. I don't look at anything that has happened in the past. Yes, technically I have a lot of failures, right? I'm not going to say that I don't have failures, but like, I look at everything as a teaching experience, a learning experience, a winning experience. very, very educational losing experience, right? And you learn things that you like and that you don't like that you can carry with you into the next thing. And so even if I didn't make as much money as I was supposed to in this first role, or in my very first year while working 2 other jobs, working a full-time internship, taking photos for free every single night while also working these 2 other gigs, I got experience and connections that I wouldn't have gotten if I was just focused on me, what do I need, what do I want to get paid, and what do I want to do? So my advice is just focus on experience, and then you narrow down more and more of what you want to do from there.
That's a great perspective, the positive one. But also on that same note, you mentioned, of course, there's a few failures along the way. What do you think you learned most from your biggest failure?
There's 2 that come to mind. The first is when I was at my first startup, we shared a building with a company that was, they were like an Amazon e-commerce agency, so they help people prop up Amazon stores. And while we were there, I was like, all right, I'm gonna build a business. And I had this idea. I was like, let's do fanny packs.
Okay.
I was like, I don't even remember how I landed on the idea. I think I looked like, my market research was I went to Google Trends and I looked up fanny packs and I was like, it looks like it was down last year, but then it was up and now it's down, so it's got to go up again. I was like, all right, there's my idea. So I got on Alibaba. I worked with like the CEO of the Amazon agency, and he was like, here's what you do. You do this, 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 and this. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Spent $5,000 on fanny packs, got everything delivered. Everything got stuck in the port, and then next thing I knew, life got busy. Startup ran out of money. I was no longer working there by the time that I was like established and we got set back up. My inventory finally got released from the port. It was like 3 months late, and then I was just like, I don't have the energy for this because I'm in a new job and I've got new things going on. So I'm just gonna put these to the side for just a little bit. Those fanny packs, I got them, I took delivery of them in August of 2021. They have moved with us from Orem, Utah to American Fork, Utah, from American Fork, Utah to Indianapolis, Indiana, from Indianapolis, Indiana back to American Fork. When I was in Indiana, I moved them from like 3 different locations. So the Great Value moving boxes from Walmart, really high quality, by the way, because they've held up over the years. But I look back at that and I would chalk that up as like one of my personal venture biggest failures, because I didn't technically like get going. But I learned so much from that experience of that being like my first business. And that was when I realized, honestly, like so many people they glamorize the idea of running a business, of like, oh, I'm gonna have my product and I'm gonna come up with this idea. And then all of a sudden you have to think about like, oh, it's gonna cost $5,000 a month to have a warehouse and pay for rent in like a good spot. You're gonna have to pay employees at least $15 an hour to pack orders if you have an e-commerce business at the bare minimum, not to mention having to pay salaries for other employees that are way more high value. Like all of a sudden the costs get really high and you don't think about having to bear the burden of all of those things when you get high on the idea of I'm gonna go launch a business. And so from that, I realized what I really needed was to go learn from other people that had done it successfully, so that eventually when I came up with my idea or what I wanted to do, I'd have all that experience to back me up so that I didn't feel like I was going in blind, so that I could avoid making the same mistakes that other people had made and they could teach me those while I was also helping them. And so I'd say that was like a big failure per se. Thankfully, and I'll kind of like knock on wood, like I haven't had any major life-altering or life-ending failures. I'd say I'm very high risk, but I'm very calculated high risk. And so I know like the right criteria of like what I can manage. Before, when it was just me and my wife and our costs were like next to nothing on a month-to-month basis, like I felt way more comfortable taking way bigger risks and different things. But we've got a family now, we've got a house, like I got to balance that out so that my wife also feels comfortable with anything we do. But yeah, I mean, I think there's little failures that happen on a day-to-day basis that I still learn from, right? Like, oh, I should have messaged that text or that email better because the prospect that I'm working with would have responded a little bit better than that. And then I'd say just like an overarching, and this is actually a piece of advice that I got from a friend, kind of a mutual friend that we know, Tim Holiday with Space Station. Best piece of advice that I've ever gotten, specifically on like the topic of business deals. He said the number one thing that kills deals is time. So when time gets in the way, like it's not that people have concerns or anything, like the sooner you address concerns for people, the sooner you overcome objections or problems that people are facing, like the number one thing that kills deals is time. And so I've failed a lot in that aspect where I've let time get in the way of things that could have been. But I also have the perspective of like, if things are going to work out, they're going to work out. So I don't put too much pressure on them.
You've worked with plenty of startups over the years. What advice would you give to founders that you probably would have needed to hear then?
Don't be fatally married to your initial idea. The development of the current business and firm that I have right now, for example, is the iteration of like 5 things. For a little bit of context, last year in June, I kind of split from a business partnership. I brought 3 employees with me. I said, hey, they took on a good amount of risk coming to work for me in the first place. I was like, let's go build a business. I will pay you for 90 days. If we can come up with a business, I'll continue to pay you and we can have a good salary. If not, we need to figure something else out. So in June of last year, I completely started from scratch, brought 3 employees with me, and I didn't even have a business. From there, I was like, all right, we got to start something. So what can we do, right? I had experience in doing content, a little bit of influencer work, UGC content. I was like, all right, let's start with that. That's like I have this like Venn diagram that I look at of like, what's the overlap of how much time is it going to take? What's your skills and your expertise? What's the ROI? And then how much value does it bring to the table? And that's where I think the perfect blend of what people should focus on or do in their businesses. So as we looked at all these things, I was like, let's start a UGC content agency. And I was like, I've built a ton of tech companies and worked with software companies. Let's start with this initial core idea of a product that we can go out and sell, we can be really, really good at, and we can build processes around. So 0 to 90 days, we did about 30K, broke even, and we had built the business that we knew that we wanted to build. From days 60 to 90, there were like a couple different paths that popped up. We were like, okay, what if we went deep into doing TikTok Shop? What if we went in and started doing a little bit more of like white labeled ads? And then I realized that like all of these things, as much as I really, really love them and I love the content game, they're gonna take a lot of time and the ROI isn't huge. So there's services that we could offer, but in reality, the thing that like people come to me the most for in business is now what my business model is, and it's developed from these like 4 or 5 dominoes, and my team probably has whiplash at this point from the amount of times we've like switched and swapped strategies. But like the whole focus and the whole premise of what we do now, the people that I work with either have an idea of what they want to build, but they don't know if it's the right idea. They need to get some validation. They don't know how to do it, so they need the right connections. Or I'll work with people that have something really solid, and it's like, what do we want to go do? How do we do an Indy 500 partnership? How do we put this deal together with this athlete? How do we do this B2B partnership? Hey, I need to cut costs in this certain area. Do you know anyone? And we'll put those deals and broker those deals together. So, I mean, where I first started the idea was, what am I good at? What can I do? What can I charge for? What do I enjoy doing? And that was where the business idea started. If I'd stayed married to that idea for the last 6 months, I wouldn't have landed on what is now a super high ROI activity. And I would have been stuck just doing, and not saying that the agency game is bad, but like, that's not the world that I wanted to be in, right? And if you go look at the iterations of all of the big companies and all the good companies that have been successful, for the majority part, most of them have had to pivot and switch and iterate. I mean, Slack is a perfect example. Like, Slack started as a video game. A lot of people don't know that. It's
really?
called Glitch. They raised, I want to say $6 million from venture capital, spent about 3.5 years building this online, I'm blanking on the term for it, but basically this online multiplayer game, spent a couple years building it, and the game just flopped, completely flopped. $2 million in venture, just wiped out just like that. But the thing that they had built that worked really well was this internal communication tool, because they were just emailing back and forth and sending updates and, hey, we need to fix this bug. And so they built this internal communication tool to be able to communicate back and forth with each other. And so from that, Stuart Butterfield basically went to his investors and said, hey, product that we originally anticipated building a video game isn't working, but we're going to build a corporate B2B communications platform, because that's what we have. 6 months later, they launched the first MVP version of Slack, and that is now the massive communication tool that just about every single business in the world uses. But it started as a video game. And so, long story short, to kind of go back to what I was saying, like, my advice is don't be married to your initial idea. And I said fatally married, because too many times people will be like, this is the idea that I started with. This is what it was going to be. Like, this is the exact path that I had. Like, if we stayed so set on the ways that we thought things should be, we would miss out 100% of the time on the ways that things could be, right? Or how they could end up. And so I think that that's the first piece of advice that I would give is don't be fatally married to an idea, because usually that's just the first domino that needs to fall. When I moved out to Indiana, I thought that I was just going to run the cold plunge business. And then I started working with my partners, and there were a couple different deals and projects that we were working on. And now I'm involved in, from that ended up, I at one point was working on and running a wooden baseball bat company. We had a supplement company. Now we have a hedge fund. Now we did an angel investment deal into a soccer team. Like all of those just came as the first domino to fall. But like just by being there and being in the arena opened up the possibilities of what could be as a result of being there, but not being fatally married to that initial idea. And then the second piece of advice that I would give is focus on, same thing that I talked about kind of like with career, but focus on experience. Like if the goal is just to get experience in building your business, I built Jolly Rancher flipping business in junior high, and I had cartoon note cards and duct tape wallets and doing if I was just trying to get as much experience that I could as selling and having businesses. If the goal is to experience, then everything is a win, especially in your business as well. And so that's the same thing to look out for. Connections that you build with people. How do you get experiences in other industries? How do you use your product in different ways that you may not have thought that would have been the original way? So those are the two pieces of advice that I think business owners can take on the mindset of like actually doing. Don't be fatally married to an idea. Be willing to experience. And then the last thing is focus completely on helping other people do what they need to do. If you're solely focused on helping other people get what they want, get what they need, solving other people's problems, you're always going to be fine, because the effect of that is prosperity, a plentitude of money in most cases, right? Because you're helping other people solve their problems. And yeah, you got to figure out like, what do I charge? What's the right balance of all of that? But like, if you focus on being open to other ideas, getting experience, and helping other people with what they need, that is like the perfect formula for eventually finding success.
What created that perspective, like the experience over anything else? Because that's a good frame to look at things, right? Even at failure, so it was an experience. I learned something. What do you think? Have you always been that way, or like is it just slowly you've cultivated that over the years, or was there one defining moment that said experience is what I'm going for?
I think retroactively, looking back, that is how I would define. I didn't consciously at the beginning when I cold emailed 300 longboard companies, or when I was at freshman convocation at UVU and I walked up to the athletics van and gave them my photography business card and said, hey, I want to take photos for you guys. Can I help out? Like, I didn't have the thought like, okay, I just need to go get as much experience as possible. Like, I was just looking out for opportunities where I could do things that were interesting to me, that piqued my interest, and do things that I felt like could teach me something. Looking back though, like now that I can articulate that into like a very simple phrase, that is 100% the exact focus that I had. Like I knew that all of those things, people always talk about like you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend all your time around, right? You're also the sum of all of the experiences and things that you go through, the hardships, the wins, the losses, the hard fought battles, the successes. Like you're the culmination of all of those things combined together. So I would say like I've always been very optimistic from the beginning, but also, like in the moment when you're going through hard stuff and you're trying to figure out like, what am I supposed to do here? One of the things that really helped me was kind of going through the different mindsets of like, okay, yes, I'm confirming that this sucks. I know that this thing sucks. Like, it's not fun to be in a business where you don't have enough money coming in, but you have payroll due on Friday. You're a little bit behind on utility bills in order to keep the lights on. You got to figure out how are you going to grow this thing. Like, that's not a fun spot to be in. But I tried to look at things from a couple different lenses, and one of the things was one of the questions that I would always ask myself was like, what am I supposed to learn from being in this right now? And then it kind of becomes a game, right? Of like, okay, you'd start to notice the theme of, okay, I'm in this right now because I'm supposed to learn X, Y, Z. And then when I finish going through something hard, I'll look back and be like, what did I learn from that? What was I supposed to learn from that if I am not seeing it in the moment? And then connecting the dots together on that, you notice the theme of like, we go through hard crap so that we can learn how to deal with hard crap. And then hard crap doesn't actually end up being that hard because you build your tolerance to what hard really means and what complicated really means and what failure really means just by willingness and being, I'll say your tolerance for dealing with stuff. Because over time, I mean, business doesn't get easier. You just get more used to the stuff that comes with doing business. And so I think I've always kind of had that positivity first mindset of like, things are going to work out. I've always had like a growth and prosperity mindset. There's plenty to go around. Everyone's going to win. But it's hard to maintain that when you're in the moment of something going wrong. But I've found that the thing that helps me the most is being able to just get to a point where I can shift my thinking for a second and be like, all right, I know that I'm in this right now, but what am I supposed to learn from this? Or what was I supposed to learn from that? How does that connect me to what I'm doing right now? How do I reflect on that? How's that going to help me into the future? And then there's been so many times where I'll go through something crappy and terrible, and then a year down the line, someone else goes through that, and I know exactly how to help them because I went through that. But I wouldn't have been able to be empathetic in that situation or in that scenario. I would have only been able to be sympathetic. But having actually gone through it myself, then I have the idea and the understanding of like how to actually do that. And that's the exact, when business owners call me up and they're like, hey, like I'm in a really bad spot. I don't know what to do. I don't know how, like, what am I missing? What are we doing wrong? Like most of the time they're running into problems that I've already run into before. And it's a very simple fix or a very simple idea or a connection or another person that can solve that problem. But if you don't go through the bad stuff, you can't have the good stuff as a result. So
of everything you've done, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered for it?
I don't think I necessarily care about, I mean, I'm not too focused on being remembered at like the largest scales or publicity or celebrity status. Like I think what's most valuable to me is one-on-one interactions. Like I'd rather, if I could be known for anything, it would be that every person that I talked to felt like I was there, present, and interested in helping them with what they needed. And whether that's me on stage speaking to an audience of 10, 20, 50, 500, 1,000 plus people, having that feel like a one-on-one interaction, or having that be an interaction with a college student that comes into my office and we talk for 30 minutes about his career path and trying to figure out, you've got these options and these routes that you want to go down, which one is the right one that you should pursue right now? Like the compilation of those one-to-one interactions, I feel like speaks more to character than just remembrance. And I feel like more than anything, I want to be remembered for character and integrity in those one-on-one interactions, because those are the things. I'm not like a big motivation person. Like I don't really have the motivational speakers that I listen to, or like that's not really my jam. I've always found that the ways that I feel the most inspired, or I feel the most drawn and pushed to do good, is when I have someone that's become a mentor or a close friend that gives me like a very unique piece of advice that I needed to hear in that exact moment. And that's why I value relationships so much, is because I've built so many good relationships with so many good people. Like I don't really like the term networking. Like I think networking is very, very transactional. But in my opinion, I think the most valuable thing that we can do here on earth is build relationships with people. Because at the end of the day, like we can't really take anything with us, but I'm 99% sure we'll be able to take friendships, relationships, and positive experiences with us, right? And so that's been a big driving force for me, and it's changed how I've looked at, like I like doing fun things. I'm restoring an old 79 Corvette. Like I've got projects, and like, don't get me wrong, I love doing fun things and having like material possessions. I think everyone does to a degree. But at the end of the day, the most important thing to me is like, what do I learn from people? How can I share that with other people? Because those are the things that impact generations to come off of a one-to-one interaction, rather than just like, this motivational speech changed my life. Mm-hmm. So I've really tried to focus on the one-to-one interaction, but I think that if I were going to be remembered for anything, it would be remembrance through positive individual experiences that I was able to have with people. And thankfully and gratefully, like I find myself in that position a lot, because I help people with a lot of problems, and it's a fun spot to be in. And you get to have a lot of impact, which is why I love what I do. So
it's funny you say that, because of all the people I met at Vid Summit, you were definitely one of the most positive experiences I've had there. Because I remember when I walked up to you, I was leaving the Irving Center. I saw you, Sam, and somebody else. You were talking, and the first thing you asked me about social media, what I do. And you're like, you asked me a few questions about your company. You're like, what would you do in this scenario to help this problem? And it made me actually think. Because most of those conversations there, they were great, but a lot of them were like, oh, you do this, oh, you do this. That was very impactful and meaningful, and it provoked thinking. And so I remembered you most than anybody else there.
Well, and the thing is, like going back to what I said, like a lot of those conversations end up being surface level networking, right? What can I do for you? What can you do for me, right? Very transactional. What do you need? do I have it? But more importantly, like, what do you have that I need? On my side, like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, is there synergies? Are there things that you do? And most of the time, I'm not even like Dr. Benjamin Hardy talks about this in his book, 10X is easier than 2X. And he talks about, like, when you operate from a spot of wanting things, or when you operate from a spot of needing things, it's a very scarce mindset. Like, what do I need? What do I need to do? What do I need to be successful at? Like, it's a very, very selfish approach. When in reality, like, when you have your needs taken care of, then you can focus on what you want to do. You don't need to have a justification for things that you want to do. If someone asked me, hey, why did you buy this 40-year-old Corvette that you found in a barn? Like, I don't know, I just wanted to. Like, why did you buy the 83 Porsche that you're also working on? I don't know, I just wanted to, right? Same thing goes for business. Like, my favorite projects that I work on are things that we do because we want to do them. And so I always try to take that approach specifically when I go to events. I try to not need anything, because no one wants to just hang out with the person that needs something. And the best time to network and build relationships with people is before you need to. But when I go to events and I have all of my needs taken care of, then it's just like growth mindset 101. What do we want to do? What are you doing? Okay, cool. You work on this really cool YouTube channel down there. I've got some friends that like have some really cool cars down there. I do some stuff in motorsports. Like, what do we want to do? Could we put something cool together over here and do some sort of collab that would help you grow? Maybe there's some fun stuff for me to do. Like, it's just like, what do we want to do? So yeah, I mean, same goes to you. It's been fun building a relationship over the last 4 months or so. You never know who you're going to run into. I've got a couple people I still keep in contact with from that event. And it's fun to see. I don't know, relationship building is my favorite part about what I do. And you end up building and crossing paths with a lot of people that you normally wouldn't have, just by nature of being willing to open your mouth, knock on a door, have a conversation, and try things. So
that's beautiful. So you work at McDonald's.
Yes.
So did I. What did you do?
Let's go.
I know.
It's going to be really funny. There were 2 primary things that I did. I worked in the drive-thru. How long ago did you work at McDonald's?
I think I quit in 2022.
Okay. So I was there 2016 was when I worked there, when I was graduating high school and then when I started in college. But I ran the drive-thru. And then, do you remember, I don't know if this was the same experience for you, but you had to go in to the, in like the onboarding videos, you have to watch all the videos of like how to make all the food and all of this. Like, I didn't want to work on the hamburger line or anything like that. But do you remember watching like the McCafe videos on how to make like all the McCafe shakes? Yeah. I'm the hand model in those videos. Really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's my like little claim to fame.
That's huge.
The store that I worked at in high school we were like the Midwest regional store. And I don't know if they still use those videos, but there was a good stint there where they definitely did. But our store was like the store that they used for all training in all of the Midwest and stuff. And so we had a film crew come in one day. And, wow. So I ran the drive-thru and then I made all the McCafe videos. There's your short answer.
There you go.
I love that job though. That's like my favorite job in the world.
Yeah, McDonald's it's a formative experience.
Yeah.
Mine was I did drive-thru, I did initiating, I did everything. I was a manager for a while. I worked for about 6 years.
Cool.
Gave me a scholarship for school, so I appreciate it, right? But one of my downfalls was I was on the night shift one time, and I went live on TikTok, because TikTok Live was a big thing back then. I got like 500 people in there. I was just making breakfast sandwiches, and my boss is like, yeah, you can't do that. It's against company policy. So that was one of the big downsides when I left, but that's funny you worked there. Yeah. I had to bring it up because
I love it, dude.
Yeah, that's iconic.
Genuinely, I think my dream job, once I like retire, I would love to go into struggling franchises and turn them around. Like struggling stores or businesses, retail, and figure out what do we need to do to turn this around, pick up company culture, and build the customer experience a little bit better. Like if you can diffuse a grown man who's upset over the fact that his hot and ready pizza that was $5.36 is running a little bit behind and diffuse him to like walk out with a smile on his face, you can do just about anything in life. So that's Little Caesars, McDonald's, whether it's, those are my 2 jobs I had in high school, but whether it's, hey, there was only 9 chicken nuggets in my 10-count chicken nugget, or you didn't give me enough barbecue sauce. Like, I don't know. I just love dealing with petty little problems like that. It's funny.
That's good.
Formative years though, as you know.
Formative years.
Yeah.
That's a good perspective, because I always I always, I think it resulted more to anger about, I mean, they're just treating me so horribly for them missing a chicken nugget. But if you could diffuse them and put a smile on their face, that's a much better perspective.
That's it. Life's too short.
Life's too short. Life's too short. I love it. Well, Ryan, it was a great conversation. Thank you.
This was awesome.
It was a good time. Good to catch up. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
I love it. Thanks for sending the text. This was awesome.
It was a great time.
Until next time.
Until next time.